There you go. Are you
Oh,
in
yeah.
this?
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Can you hear us? Can you see us? Good afternoon, everyone.
The thing behind you.
Can you see us? We apologize for the late start. We had some technical issues on our side, but we'll make sure that we start even before time next time. I'm so happy to have you here in our third offering of Township Talks. We have Lusanda, the CEO of Township of uMaStandi, speaking with us today through Women in Properties and just sharing some insights on the foundation of uMaStandi, Tough 21, the ethos of what's happening in the township economy and why Tough 21 decided to actually invest within, and Tough Group decided to invest within the township economy. We apologize for the video. We've kind of had to change from our initial plan and just be nimble. We needed to be nimble, just like we expect an uMaStandi entrepreneur to be. Hi, Lusanda. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you very much. I think it's this Facebook technology and me. Apologies, everybody.
I think you guys have seen enough of me, so I'm actually going to put the camera on her side and I'll just do the asking of the questions. I'm so glad to see you here, Fezokuhle. Were you here in any of the last 3 events? Who here has been here in any of the last events? Now I'll go straight into the questioning because we're short of time. Lusanda, we know that you've had an ample experience in impact investing and social housing. What brought you to TAF specifically?
Well, because I was already working in inner cities and TAF was starting a business of financing micro developers in inner city environments, and I had financed them from my previous job. So it was just fellow travelers meeting again down the road. So I rejoined TAF. But before I say all of that, I wanted to formally apologize that we started late. I know we are kind of using a cell phone camera, and Simi would have loved to make it look her usual glamorous. So please excuse us for that. But yes, I've been working with TAF for more than 20 years now, indirectly, but directly for 16 years.
So you moved across the value chain, basically. We know that TAF 21 was a founder of TAF. But in 2021, we decided to actually rebrand TAF 21 and actually make it have its own mandate, its own vision, and its own ethos. What would you say is the exact mission of TAF 21, and why did we do the separation?
I think that from our starting days back in 2003, TAF 21 always wanted to make sure that it contributes to sustainable urban development. And TAF, the group in inner city financing, started to grow commercially as a business. And we felt as TAF 21 that we needed to look for other opportunities for urban development. And townships were the next best stop, but they were already waiting. We have been approached already before by other entrepreneurs saying to us, when are you going to start financing in townships? Mm-hmm. So in 2021, we thought we'd already started piloting uMaStandi in TAF Limited already from 2015. Mm-hmm. So it was time at that time to say maybe TAF 21 can move on and start focusing on growing uMaStandi and having a focused approach to township support and township property entrepreneurship through TAF 21. So that's why we decided to separate.
What have you found through uMaStandi have been the biggest hurdles within the township economy? You've seen the opportunity through TAF 21 and you decided to actually go into it and actively go into it. What have you found to be the biggest hurdles within the industry?
So I think that it's an open secret. It's our government. Local government is inefficient. The regulations that township entrepreneurs have to comply with are necessary, but they are expensive and they take time. Most township entrepreneurs don't have the budgets nor the time to follow through the process. And some of them seem to not really always understand the requirements for rezoning, the requirements for, getting consent use and that. And it's not always easy to find someone on the other side at local government to guide you, to say this is what you actually need to do, this is what you need to bring, and this is how long it will take for you to do this. So we've had people submitting plans for approval and are waiting for 2 years and nothing is happening. So that discourages people from doing things formally and ensuring that they comply, and we end up with people with structures that are actually not compliant. So I would say that, for a developing country like ours, we need a government that's more nimble, that's more on the ground, that's more accessible. And obviously it didn't help during COVID that they started working from home, and you still have pockets of local government officials working from home, and so it means they're not accessible. It's not easy to send a plan which is like what's that big paper, A3, A2, and have to scan that through. You need to be able to go to someone physically and say, these are the plans that I want to develop and that I want you to look at and approve. But if you're to do that online, it becomes quite tedious. So we found that, that's a huge thing. We think that, we've come a long way with the city of Joburg in terms of Soweto, with them having a better scheme that allows for these developments to happen. But we're starting to see, obviously, that issues around parking and being able to get consent for relaxation for parking are becoming an issue. Cape Town has been especially difficult in terms of kind of navigating those rezoning processes. But I must admit that they've been very open to reviewing the processes, reviewing the necessary costs and related timelines. And they've been working on that for the past, I think, at least 18 to 24 months that we've been working on. And they're looking at introducing a scheme or an overlay approach that will make those processes easier. We are battling with the City of Ekurhuleni specifically, and City of Tshwane. They don't seem to yet be prioritizing townships, at least that's our view. But we are hoping that, they'll get there. Already they're making the right noises and showing the interest to want to support. But, if you want to do something, develop 10, 20 units in Tembisa, right now you would battle. If you want to do the same thing in Atteridgeville, in Tshwane, City of Tshwane, you would literally be wasting your time at this stage. That's what we're seeing. And we think that's unfortunate in that it locks out financial institutions like us, because we then can't provide formal financing, which means a person goes to a mashonisa, borrows expensive money, and then bills without compliance. This is not useful, obviously, for any of the parties involved.
And uMaStandi seems to be an invested stakeholder within this financier, within this township economy. What sort of interactions or some assistance is uMaStandi specifically doing to try and enable those, or put in those lockouts, open those lockouts for the property entrepreneurs within the township economy?
I think we try our best. I mean, we're not perfect. We don't have all the answers. We can't do the work for the property developers. It's their investment at the end of the day. But we do provide guidance. We have a full-on training program that we provide with a mentor that we match each of our entrepreneurs with, who can take them through the necessary processes that they need to follow. Excuse me, everyone, my voice is rusty with flu. But, we also have technical support in terms of a quantity surveyor that we call a project review consultant in a project that we have financed, who can assist and provide the guidance. We try to interface also with the professionals on the ground, the draftspeople, the architects, etc., just to make sure that they can provide the necessary guidance to the entrepreneurs. The difficulty, of course, is that our financing is available after the plan is approved, because you can only build once your plans are approved. And to get your plans to be approved, you need to have your own money to start that process. So you find that most entrepreneurs are battling with that. They can't raise that financing to start that rezoning process, etc. So that delays some of the projects. We've tried to look at how we can incorporate it differently in the different municipalities. At eThekwini, for instance, we are unable to accommodate that upfront because we just don't know yet how that city would respond to that. But in Joburg, we have had some flexibility in Soweto where we could unlock access to finance for our clients while they work on the town planning processes. So what I would say with that is that it would depend on each project where it is, and that each of the potential client who wants to become a client of ours or an existing client must speak to their portfolio manager to see what's available in terms of support.
Given some of the, I can see how uMaStandi really is investing itself throughout the value chain. I know that the TAF and uMaStandi offer what is called Indutugo, which helps with the equity funding for property entrepreneurs. Some of a fund that's really made to unlock this property investment business for entrepreneurs. Take us through that in terms of how it came about for TAF, what TAF saw, and how an uMaStandi client
can access Indutugo. Yeah, no, definitely. I think Indutugo is a game changer in this industry because most financiers wouldn't finance you more than 80% of the value of your property. So we also finance up to 80% of LTV with uMaStandi or even TAF in the inner cities, as you know. So because of that requirement that we finance up to 80% of LTV, it then automatically means that the developer must put in 20% of their own, preferably unencumbered cash contribution into the transaction. Depending on how large the development is, if it's a 10 million development, not everybody has 20% of 10 million. In fact, most people that I know in townships don't have 20% of 10 million. So Indutugo comes in to assist with that. It's a mezzanine loan, which essentially means that between uMaStandi and Indutugo, you can get up to 95% of loan to value, meaning you can get up to 95% of the facility you require to purchase. Remember, our facility is all inclusive. It includes the cost of purchasing the piece of land, the cost of developing that piece of land, the professional fees involved to design and build this thing, obviously the construction materials and all of that, legal fees to transfer and register the process. So it's an all-in facility at 80% with uMaStandi. Now with Indutugo, you suddenly have 95% of potential funding, and you have to bring in your own. Obviously, you always have to have some skin in the game, as they say. So about 5% of earnest money, which I think in my experience so far with TAF 16 years later, Indutugo has opened up property investment for a lot of previously disadvantaged people who thought that they couldn't access it. We have financed people who literally had nothing. Have come in and say, I only have 5,000 rands in my pocket and I've seen a development that makes sense. Can you support me? And through Indutugo Equity Fund, it's Indutugo, so so because of that, we have been able to finance a lot of people. And I think in townships as well, a lot of our clients have accessed Indutugo, and yeah, it's been a game changer, as I say.
It seems like uMaStandi and TAF 21 as a whole really look into financing that unlocks potential, especially for PDI. I saw a statistic that for uMaStandi specifically, 55% of the loans that have been advanced to females, and specifically PDI females. What would you say is the reason why uMaStandi has attracted this? And why is uMaStandi easier to access funding for specifically females or PDIs?
Because it's called uMaStandi. So uMaStandi is a female. So umama or owner that stand, or who owns stand sesele co-locationing. So it's I think it was a play of words that we thought of to say that in townships, if you look at it really, the people who always provided affordable accommodation at the back of their main house was a middle-aged to almost old-age woman who was wanting to supplement her income through providing mukuku at the back or some informal structure. So we said uMaStandi can do that and formalize it a little bit. But it doesn't mean it excludes men. We have a lot of male clients in uMaStandi, so I don't want men out there to think they can't approach us. But because of that, I think the name of it then attracted more women to come. But the reality also is that we've been financing in inner cities. Inner cities can be intimidating for women. It's high-rise buildings. Some of them are, are in decline, and so there's crime and grime, and women are feeling uncomfortable to come in. They want to start this development, and they are thinking it looks overwhelming for me. But in townships, I think the environments are relatable, and the developments are smaller, so it's medium density, low to medium density developments of anything between 10 to 30 units. It allows for someone who thinks construction is for men, or who thinks property ownership is for men. It then suddenly says to women, actually, we can do this ourselves. We've seen a lot of women actually getting involved in the construction side of things. So they are themselves bricklayers, plumbers, in townships, and they're doing the actual construction process. And it's easy, I think, to enter and grow that skill in townships because the size of the development is such that you can start small and progressively grow. So that's why we have more women financing uMaStandi, and we are very proud of that, if I have to say so myself. So yes, it's Women's Month, and we have 58%?
55%.
55% of our clients as
we
women.
We can grow it to 58.
55% of our clients are women. I'm very proud of that. Yes.
No. uMaStandi is doing a great job, even if I have to say so myself. No, just to conclude, before we take some live questions, what would you say an entrepreneur who's trying to get into uMaStandi would need to have, or would need to be, in order to kind of increase their chances of getting financed by uMaStandi?
I think they just have to have genuine passion to want to do the right thing, provide quality accommodation, make sure that the development that they provide is such that they themselves can live in it, that they have pride of ownership. I think that there's, uMaStandi is somebody who owns the stand. This is my stand. I own it. I have pride of ownership. So I think it's that. But also there's a reality in South Africa that townships have been neglected for long, and most of us who might have grown up there or in rural areas have some sentimental attachments to want to go back and redevelop townships. And I think that the focus now for township economies and developing township economies calls on all previously disadvantaged, educated people like you and I, or some of our clients who have an attachment in the townships, and have ability to understand financial products, have an ability to understand property development, to go back and reinvest in townships. I think that the time for townships to be supported, the time for township entrepreneurs to start growing and doing something meaningful there is now. And I think that we need micro developers who are committed to that objective and are not in it just for the money. Yes, money is important, because no money, no business. No business. So money is important for them to sustain these developments. But I think that it must genuinely come from the need that says, we want to leave these townships better than we found them. We grew up there. We saw kids playing in dusty roads. We want to be able to see them kicking ball on a nice grassy, football patch that we have financed or supported or sponsored as micro developers in a particular corner of Soweto. We want to be able to say, we have taken up a corner and we've put in proper units, including some retail, so that a small business operator can come and operate there. So that these areas become vibrant, and the young people of today growing in townships have a different experience than some of us did. I think,
no, you heard that here, ladies and gentlemen. The time is now. The time is now to invest in township properties. All you need to do is to be committed, have the financial skills, and really be an active investor who really wants to put back into the townships. We're going to take some of your live questions that you've given to us, and I'll just send them through to Lusanda. Princess is asking, what about good growing townships that are not yet been placed under your finance areas, like townships in Mpumalanga?
I don't want a Princess Sieza, but not yet. The reason we're not yet financing in those areas is that we try to focus on multi-sector economies. So where you can find employment, or your tenants rather, if you're a micro developer, can find employment opportunities from different types of sectors. So where you can have government, private sector, education, mining, manufacturing in one place. You find that, for instance, in areas like Rustenburg, the only sector is mining there. So it's a single sector economy. It means that if that economic activity gets impacted negatively by whatever reason, you start seeing your tenants losing their jobs, and therefore you are exposed to their inability to pay rental. So for that reason, we have been trying to focus on multi-sector economies, which means naturally we then move to the larger metros. But over time, we're starting to see, we've been asked many times, people saying, I have a nice development in Polokwane, you have to come and see it. I have something in Mpumalanga or Northwest, and we will look at that over time, but not currently.
Guguletu is asking, I'm a construction contractor from Katlehong. I have recognized properties in my neighborhood that could possibly benefit from uMaStandi. However, most of these owners do not have accessibility to even the internet, so they miss opportunities. I would like to participate in assisting these people to see if they qualify to help them. How do I step in, as these are my potential clients?
I love people like you who think entrepreneurially. So what you can do is that you can get in touch with us, and we can introduce you to one of our portfolio managers, or two of them. We have Victor Mateta, who operates in that Katlehong area in Ngobi, and they can chat to you so that between the three of you, you can decide how you start developing an approach to go and speak to those homeowners. We have a lot of this because obviously townships, elderly people live there, and can completely relate to what you say. So you can get in touch with us. I think, will you be sharing for me the details? Yes. Yeah. They will be sharing the details, and you can get in touch with us, and we'll see what we can do.
Just on that, Gugu, this is one of the reasons why uMaStandi has started initiatives like Township Talks to share information. We know now, Gogo, Bako YouTube, Nako TikTok, and we really hope, and they have Facebook, we really hope that you can save any of our videos and play it for them so that they're actually able to understand what it is that we do and how they can be participants within uMaStandi.
I think I vibe with the Gogos. I don't know TikTok nor Facebook. So anyway,
I'm value TikTok.
So let's see. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll take one more question. I think I saw one from Edebuho who was asking if we only finance back rooms.
No, actually we don't. We don't only finance back rooms. So we have two types of potential clients that we deal with. The first type is what we call a resident landlord. So this is the typical uMaStandi who wants to build rooms at the back of her main house. So the main house stays, and she would build what you call a back room. So we have that resident landlords. It's not a lot in our portfolio. Most of the clients that we finance are what we call micro developers. So they are, someone with an interest in the township wants to buy an existing house there, demolish it, and then build a 2-3 story development that has 10, 20, 30 units and densify that one stand. So what we're seeing, where we used to have one family living on a plot, we now have micro developers coming in and developing units for 15, 20 families to live on that plot, which I think is a game changer in South Africa as well. Never mind into Tuko being a game changer, but densification is the real deal here, because without our ability to use existing infrastructure and use communities that already have access to engineering services and densify those, we won't be able to provide vibrant communities and affordable housing. So I think that there's need an agency in townships. I mean, we all know that townships were obviously developed for specific reasons in the past, and most of them are very low density. We are now saying you don't have to make them high rise in the same style as inner cities, but maybe you need a mix of both low and medium density developments. And micro developers are starting to do that at a big scale.
No, thanks, Lusanda. I don't want to keep you any more than we have. I want to thank you for coming to Township Talks and just really sharing valuable information on why uMaStandi is and why Tough 21 is. I think it's so important to have many of us really holding hands to build the township economy. And it's great to see the type of work that uMaStandi is doing on the whole value chain to try to unlock these potentials for township developers. I think our last question really would be, any other tips or advice that you would have for township developers?
I think the important thing is to start small. Anything in life, you want to be able to make sure that you learn, and when you make mistakes, you don't fail big. So start small, find a development where you can do 10 units, 15 units. Don't go for 100 immediately because you'll burn your fingers properly. So it's very important to start small, but also, an equity requirement for 50 units and above is much higher. Unless, of course, you have a healthy balance sheet and you are able to put in that equity, it makes sense to start smaller. So most of our clients would start for an average loan size of about 1.3 million, 1.5 million, 20% equity of 1.3, 1.5 million. Most people can make a plan, so it's important that you start small. I think that for me is an important lesson, but also just try to make sure that, yes, compliance is costly, it takes time, but your asset has no value without compliance. Make sure that when you build these units with or without our finance as uMaStandi, make sure that you go through the town planning processes, that development at the end of the day is able to have the real value that you've put in it when you want to sell it to the next person, and it can trade properly and be registered in the deeds office because it's recognized, it has its plans approved. So that's very important. Another issue obviously is this issue of insurance. Most of us don't want to pay insurance because we think it's a grudge payment for all of us because you don't know when you want to need it. But until you need it, you regret not having it. So it's very important if you have a development in townships already, or you are thinking of having one, whether through us or not, that you make sure that you insure your asset, because if it bends or anything happens, you need to be able to make sure that you can recover what you need to recover. But also to be creative, for me, I think it's important. The reality is that we have load shedding. And if you are going to keep your tenants and retain and attract good tenants, you need to think about how you can provide alternative sources to energy. How can I incorporate solar in my development, or other ways of sort of greening the development so that tenants can continue to use their Wi-Fi and go what we call TikTok, go on TikTok if they need to be able to cook, so you have a gas stove when you come from home and not be forced to go and buy a McDonald's when you can't afford it. So it's very important that people think about installing those alternatives, even if they're not financed through us. So I think that it's very important that in townships we do that. And to speak to other developers, networking, I know people think it's overrated, but I've seen in my experience at TAF that people have developed better units because they've learned from Simi, who's done it before and had done something that she should have avoided. Then you are able to avoid that. So it's important to network, I'm sounding terrible. It's important to network and make sure that you learn from people who've done this before you. It's important to take advantage of the training and mentorship that is provided out there. I mean, we provide training to our clients. It's also accessible to people who are not clients. If you are wanting to make sure that you understand what you're getting into, I'd say look out for those opportunities and see what you can learn. So yes, that would be mine. Did you say one? I think five.
No. I said tips, plural. Yeah. Thank you so much, Lusanda. As you heard here, ladies and gentlemen, you need to have to develop according to the equity that you have. You need to network. Is that a question? You need to network. You need to be able to comply, because there's value in compliance.
Are you looking into
student accommodation or especially after COVID? Okay, Stevens just asked a question. Are we looking into, as we were closing, Stevens, but I'll take that as a last question because I do know that Lusanda needs to run to the next meeting and I want to give you a breather break. Are we looking into providing finances to student accommodation specifically after COVID?
Before COVID, student accommodation is a difficult product. And I think that it's oversold in the market. So one of the tips, in fact, I should have added there is that when you're starting out in property, try to stay out of student accommodation. It needs specific skills. It needs someone with ability to carry the cash flows if you are unable to collect the income obviously from the university or NEFSAS. It's a particularly difficult market from that point of view. It can be very profitable, obviously, if you are able to get a university that pays on time and NEFSAS places students reliably and each year is able to confirm that they will place students in your development. But it's difficult. And if you're playing in the private student accommodation market, you know, I'm a parent, my son is 20. To pay for a unit for him outside home is not easy. So chances are you're going to default as a parent. So you want to deal with defaults for privately let student units, depending obviously on how you've priced them and where they are situated. So just generally, I have a jaundiced view to student accommodation. I think it's oversold. I think that if you want to develop a sustainable property portfolio, you need to make sure that you are targeting the multi-let family sort of environment, you know, single people who've just started working. And once you then have matured in the business, you can have some student accommodation because then you have a balance sheet to carry any of those risks. Should you have cash flow issues, you can step in for at least 6 months at a time. We've seen some people having to carry the obligations of servicing a bond, paying operating costs, etc., for 6 months before university can pay. It can be quite painful, of course, depending who you are. If you are some rich person
who has
the money that won't bother you, I guess. Yes.
Stevens, I hope you feel answered, and I think really this is the take that everyone at uMaStandi has been saying, especially with student accommodation within the township area, because we are not even, our proximity within the different universities is not as much. And just taking that consideration when looking into student accommodation. Lusanda, I want to thank you for coming to Township Talks. Hopefully we'll be able to steal you again at some point, maybe 1 year. We'll have everything set up next time. And we thank you for sharing your insight and really showing the woman in property specifically, because I think what's special about this specific episode is that it's Women's Month. We want to show women that you can be an uMaStandi, and how do we enable you to become an uMaStandi. Thank you for sharing your insight. Thank you for actually engaging within this access to finance environment and ensuring that property entrepreneurs get that access and get the training and support that they need. We hope that we will be able to get you back within the next year. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks to Simi, obviously, for the wonderful hosting. I think you are wonderful. Thank you. And again, we apologize for starting so awkwardly earlier. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. With that, we will bring Township Talks offering 3 to a close. We hope to have you again next month. Look out on our social medias and you'll see who we'll be interviewing next month. We're thinking of going into estate planning and some legalities within the property sector or property financing in next month. And just stay tuned. You'll hear when this will happen, and we hope to have you there. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Celo.